started with? Is it San Ignacio? And so in San Ignacio, it's like, I don't know, 20 people live there, but 50 people were here. and in San Isidro, I have no idea how many people sleep in San Isidro, but if I were from San Isidro, I would say, ¿Dónde duerme tanta gente, you know? There's so many people here this morning. Thank you very much for coming out this morning. I just want to lay out a few ground rules, only because we learned a thing or two from doing a rehearsal of this. And so the people you see behind me are people who are lovely storytellers. But these are storytellers that do not need 2 or 3 minutes. They need more. And so what we want to give them this morning is the more. What that means is that the audience will have opportunities to participate in very specific ways. If you have a question or if you have an observation, a curiosity perhaps, during the course of a talk, we want you to grab a note card and write what it is that you're thinking. And, you know, there are people here who can just give you a note card. And if you will post it somewhere, and then the moderator for the morning, El Dr. Garza, who's behind me, will be walking around during the course of the presentations, and we'll be looking at your questions. And we'll integrate the questions seamlessly, I think, because El Dr. Garza is very skilled as a facilitator. And your question will make its way into the presentation at some point. So that's what's going to happen as they're presenting. In other words, we want them to present. We want them to tell their stories. Opportunities to talk with each other will be during the break. And then at the very end, we're going to have some time to talk together. We want them, however, to tell their stories. Are we good with that? All right, before I turn it over to Dr. Garza, who's the facilitator, I would like to ask you to raise your hand if you are not officially a friend of the Museum of South Texas History. Raise your hand if you're not. In other words, you signed up. You signed up for it, and you have a card. If you're not, raise your hand. You're not. Okay. We want to encourage you to not only be a friend of the museums, but also, to contribute to the museum. And these are not huge rates. They're nominal rates, but you get a museum card, and you can come in and out as you will. You have access to everything, the archives and programs at the museum. Okay? All right, before I turn it over to Dr. Garza, is there any curiosity that anybody has that I need to respond to as a museum executive here before I turn it over? Anybody here? Yes, sir. So what we're doing is during this summer and into actually, I think September, we have small towns that we're featuring. So we have San Isidro today, obviously. We did San Ignacio. We have Hargill coming up. And I'm sure we're missing 1 or 2 towns La Villa we're featuring as well. So we want to pay attention to the small towns that often produce great people. But the small towns don't get the publicity that McAllen or Edinburgh. Into September. We're going into September with that. And then we'll do it again next summer. Okay? All right. I wanted to recognize it. Do we have any trustees here in the audience? I don't think we have a trustee in the audience. Okay, but we do have staff members. I want to recognize my staff for the museum. We have Debbie. Debbie, raise your hand. Debbie's our development officer. We have Leticia over in the back. Leticia's our program officer. We have Sandy Pollock in the back, our communications officer. And we have Tony, Tony is from Rio Grande, from Stark County. And so Tony is our multimedia specialist. And I may be missing maybe 1 or 2 others, not sure. And la doctora Peña, where is she? Lali Peña in the back, yes. So Lali sometimes sleeps in Delmita. Yes, sometimes she sleeps in Delmita, sometimes in Edinburgh. Okay, so without further ado then, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Garza. Dr. Garza, you ready?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Guajardo. And welcome, everybody. Welcome to what we call Small Town 956. And today we highlight the community of San Isidro. So, and again, of course, the event is sponsored by the Museum of South Texas History, of which we all encourage you to become a part of. And I'm Adalberto Garza. I'm a veterinarian by profession. I'm proud to say that I was born in Porcion 80 of Stark County, one of our original line grants to our family. I was raised in San Isidro, part of a ranching family. So at the time, one point, one really important point, and it's my responsibility to set the tone. So I want to set a real casual tone for today's presentation. Of those of us that are here this morning, we have Dr. Alejo Salinas, we have Raul Garza, we have Belinda Villarreal, and we have Amanda Reyes Villarreal. So to set the tone, for the record, the three gentlemen that are here on the stage basically this morning, we were not born in a hospital. We were born just out at probably at our grandparents' house. Right? So the reason I want to set that stage is so in my family there was no need for any real doctors, so I became a veterinarian. So I attended San Isidro schools, and I got my degree in veterinary medicine from Texas A&M University. I own and operate La Copita Ranch, and it's on the southern part of the San Isidro community. Of course, all the important individuals that helped put this program together have already been introduced, for the exception of Leticia Cavazos. Thank you for helping us so much. And I also want to thank Elba Fernandez Garza, Rosie Salazar Garza. They put together a little gift for the appreciation, our appreciation of you attending this program. And at the end of the program, we're going to, you got some tickets, we're going to raffle a little statue, actually two, of San Isidro. So the topic being the community of San Isidro this morning. The community of San Isidro is an unincorporated community, and it can be most accurately defined by the San Isidro Independent School District. So the parameters or the footprint of the school district is basically what defines the community. And within that school district are many other communities like Santa Elena, Delmita, which have their own post office. In total, that area that encompasses the San Isidro Independent School District, there's about 500 people there. And what brings the community together is the school district and two churches, the San Isidro Catholic Church and the San Isidro Baptist Church. Between the school district and the churches, that is the cement of social life in San Isidro. Of course, Rio Grande City is the county seat for Stark County, and we are located at the extreme northeast corner of Stark County. Again, the community is named after the patron saint, San Isidro. And San Isidro is the patron saint of Madrid and the patron saint of farmers and many rural communities around the Hispanic world. It is mentioned that San Isidro was established in 1877, and by what I have read, that's when a post office came to the community. But the reality is that there have been inhabitants of the community for many years before that. And for example, there were Spanish land grants that were given mostly along the river, um, in Stark County, for example. And then there were Mexican land grants that were given around the period of 1835 to 1836 that were a little bit further inland. And San Isidro sits within one of those land grants that is known as the Santa Teresa land grant, and that was granted in 1836. There's also a very well-known other land grant called La Sal Colorada. And the reason these two land grants are so important is that many of the founding families of the community, and not only of the San Isidro, Santa Elena, Delmita communities, many of the families come from a little bit further south, the Rio Grande City, the Camargo, the Mier areas. So it's basically an extension, a generational extension of the original founding communities. So it is said that the Peñas were the founding families of San Isidro, as the Garzas and Villarreals, Alvarados, for example, in Delmita and Santa Elena. But there are many, many ranches within the footprint of the San Isidro community. One of the most iconic structures in the community is Las Norias de San Isidro, and that includes a system of water troughs and corrals, all made out of stone. And that is probably the most iconic structure that we can find in San Isidro. We're probably, I think we do have a film on the Norias de San Isidro. And as it happens throughout history, through our archaeological studies and so forth, you will find that is those things that are built out of stone that will last the longest. And we can imagine that there were many structures that were wood structures that over a period of 100 years or 200 years have just decayed. But the Norias of San Isidro, we've been trying to determine when they were built. And they were probably built anytime between 1680 and 1750. We believe that they are also part of the Camino Real going from Camargo to San Antonio. And we also find that along that trail, we have systems similar, not as elaborate, because the San Isidro structures are one of the, in my opinion, one of the most elaborate systems of stone water well troughs and corrals. A little bit further north is Santa Elena, which is part of our family. And we have a similar structure there in Santa Elena, all built out of stone, but not as elaborate. If we go up a little further north, Las Animas Ranch that belongs to the Trevino family, Abundio Trevino out of Rio Grande City, you will find also quite an elaborate structure. And of course, the ranch homes built out of siar and stone. So all along, and then further south in one of our family ranches, El Coyote, is also a similar water well system and the stone structures. So we were talking, Amanda and I, about when the San Isidro, Norias de San Isidro were built, and she says there's an inscription somewhere there that mentions 17 something. And pardon? 1777. Okay. Well, and San Antonio was established very early on in the 1700s, um, before 1730, as we all have read, having to do with the Canary Islanders, um, and obviously many people must have had to pass through there. Um, I would like to say, and I mean the next statements from the bottom of my heart. The most valuable asset of the community of San Isidro is its people. The people of San Isidro are hardworking, honest, and of integrity. And I'd like to add a disclaimer to that. So if you should ever meet a person from San Isidro that does not meet the standards of being hardworking, honest, and of integrity, it's just they weren't listening, or they didn't learn right. Because I can assure you that all of our elders, all of us that remember our parents and our grandparents, and those of us lucky enough to have known our great grandparents, they taught us well. So, do I have only 5 more minutes or less? So we'll go to what I want to do is I want to try and frame how we got to San Isidro. I'm a Garza Peña and also a descendant of the Peña family that supposedly founded old San Isidro. So there's some historical time periods that are very important as to how we got to San Isidro and how we got here where we're at today as well. So the first significant historical event was the discovery of the New World and primarily the expulsion of Sephardi Jews from Spain. It's also quite well established that the Spanish Inquisition extended to the Canary Islands and to the New World. And out of that discovery and expulsion came many people that found a place to live called Nuevo León. So in 1596, and I'm skipping, there's hours and hours in between all these time periods that we could talk about. But in 1596, the founding of Monterrey occurred by Diego Montemayor. And many of the founding families were of Sephardi descent, or called conversos to the Catholic faith. And I always like to think of who was the first converso, who was like the first human being that converted from Judaism to Christianity. I think that's a loaded question, but I suppose it was Jesus Christ himself. Right? So there's really, so it's pretty neat to be a converso, and all of us will know that we have some of this converso genetics in us if we just to do a little DNA study. So in the 1750s, colonization came to Nuevo Santander, primarily from the families of Nuevo León, and Camargo, Mier, Reynosa, Matamoros, Revilla, they were all established between the period of 1749 and 1774. Of course, there were already people living in those areas before the so-called establishment date. In 1810, Mexico declared independence from Spain. one particular point in our family that's important is from our surname de la Garza. It is talked about that to show support for Mexico, our family dropped the de la Garza part of our name and went on using the name Garza. And in the time period, it just so happens in my line, for example, that's exactly when the de la was dropped off from de la Garza in our family. In 1821, Mexico was given independence from Spain. And of course, we credit the Catholic priest Miguel Hidalgo for being the liberator of Mexico, or independence from Spain. Miguel Hidalgo, for which the county of Hidalgo is named after. And of course, that name reflects the deep cultural and historical ties between South Texas and Mexico. In 1836, Texas declares independence from Mexico. Mexico never recognized the Republic of Texas independence. And during that time period, Mexico is still granting land grants, even though Texas claims that this part of the world was independent of Mexico. But that's the time period that Mexico kept giving land grants. And why did that happen is because Mexico still wanted to have its citizens on this side of the river, on the north side of the rivers, to have reverence to their country. And in 1845, the United States annexed Mexico. Of course, Mexico protested, and in 1846, Mexico and the United States went to war. So by this time, the Anglo population in the area is becoming significant. One of the most significant things that happened during this time, in 1846, one of my great aunts by the name of Maria Hilaria de la Garza married Henry Clay Davis. And that was the first recorded for this area, the first recorded marriage of a member of an elite Mexican family to marry an Anglo person, an Anglo man. My research of Henry Clay Davis shows that he was actually a good person. And yes, and some descendants of Henry Clay Davis, and through this marriage of Maria Hilaria de la Garza, we still get together for lunch every now and then. So the Davis clan and us. That's pretty amazing after over 150 years. So what that brought about, and when the United States took over, this part of the world, it was a cultural shock for our people. And if you can imagine, between the time period of 1880 under Spanish rule to just 28 years later in 1848, our ancestors went through rule from Spain to Mexico to Texas to the United States in just 28 years. That created just extreme cultural shock, change of language, change of government, and it put our people at a disadvantage. And it was advantageous at this time for Anglo settlers to marry wealthy Hispanic women. And there are several marriages cataloged, another one being the Mifflin Kennedy and Petra Vela marriage. And then there's the John McAllen, the Salome Bailly marriage. But these men, to their credit, these men were entrepreneurs. They just didn't marry to, hey, I'm married and I got wealth and so forth. They were entrepreneurs, and they did a lot for the community. For example, Henry Clay Davis founded Davis Landing, and he took over Porcion 80 and 81 and part of 79 in Stark County. And then what happened thereafter was the steamboat and the commerce and the trade. And many people became extremely wealthy out of the steamboat commerce. And one of the main ones was Charles Stillman, whose son, James Stillman, was the founder of Citibank today. There were also many Mexican-American families that integrated into the business sector and did very well. And there were banks formed in Brownsville through, what at that time became Mexican-American families. Some of those banks are still in existence today. Fort Ringgold was also formed during this time of 1848. And of course, there were some bad sentiments. Another family member, Juan Nepomuceno Cortina de la Garza, he protested. I mean, he started a war about, hey, this is not right, that this change in government has created profound problems for our families. And then in 1850, Stark County was formally formed. 1852, Stark County's first civil government began. 1853, Rio Grande City was declared the county seat. So Rio Grande City, county seat of Stark County, and San Isidro, the community in the northeast part of the county. I could talk for hours on many of these tangents, but in the essence of time and to be respectful of the museum and my dear friend, Dr. Francisco Guajardo, at this time I am going to let our speakers, who are going to concentrate more on the communities, to speak. So our first speaker is Raul Garza. He was born and raised in Stark County, went to San Isidro schools, graduated from San Isidro High School. He earned a Bachelor of Education in Elementary Education from Pan American College with a double minor in History and Physical Education. He later obtained both a master's degree in counseling and a master's degree in school administration. He grew up on the Santa Maria Ranch, where his father was a rancher and farmer, and he continues the tradition of farming and ranching on the very same ranch today. Raul is unofficially, or maybe officially, our family genealogist. Raul has published several books on the genealogy of our South Texas families. Raul and I, along with his brother Gilbert, my cousin David, all the primos, we've chased our roots throughout Spain, Portugal, and the Canary Islands. So it is with great pleasure to introduce Raul Garza.
Thank you, Doc. Good morning, everyone. First of all, excuse my hat, because I take it off, I'm going to raise about 10 years more. So anyway, he covered a lot of my presentation, but you can always add details to whatever he said. First of all, I'm going to start talking about way back in the 1500s when we first got here and landed in Veracruz and then went to Mexico City. And the reason that a lot of those early settlers were coming in was because um, they started discovering silver. There was a lot of silver mining. So from Mexico City, they went to Zacatecas, and from Zacatecas, they went on to Durango, Saltillo, and Monterrey. Eventually, they discovered more mines around Cerralbo, and our ancestors, the Garzas mainly, and a lot of others were in the military. Their job was to protect the mines, protect the people around the communities and so forth. And you'll see in our genealogy a lot of captains, captains and other military people. So from Cerralbo with Escandon, that's when we came over to, they came over to Villas del Norte, which is Camargo mainly, and Mier in our part of the family. Others went to Reynosa and Revilla, Laredo, and so forth. Some went even up further north to uh, Piedras Negras, which at that time was called San Fernando de Asturias area, where some of our Laurel ancestors went. Because for many years I did researched the Laurel side of the family, because this guy came over and married uh, a daughter of Vicente Sainz, Juana Pomeceno Laurel. And he married Maria Toribia Jesus Sainz. And where did this guy come from? There was no Laureles over here in this area. So for many years, been doing the research to find out where exactly he came from. And finally, like a couple of years ago, I discovered a birth certificate of Juana Pomeceno Laurel. I was always looking for Juana Pomeceno Laurel, but there was some records here in Camargo where he married for the second time and the third time, but couldn't find any marriages for the first one, which was to this science lady, which we come from. And so had no clues whatsoever, had a lot of letters that I fortunately collected a lot of old documents and letters, some of which are in this book over here, that belonged to my grandmother. When she passed away and everybody passed away at the ranch where we lived, she left, what do you call, chest full of papers and stuff. So I took the opportunity to get them all and save them, because everything was left as it was there at that house for many years. And then it burned down, unfortunately. So it's a good thing I took those papers. And I found a lot of documents, old documents that are in that book, like I said. And there, going back to Juana Pomeceno, Laurel, I was always searching on Family Search for anything about him. But when I noticed that the records in Camargo said Juan Pomeceno Laurel, Córdoba, then I said, hey, maybe I should be looking for Laurel Córdoba, not just Laurel. So I looked for Juan Pomeceno Laurel Córdoba on Family Search, and there it was. He was born in San Fernando de Asturias, Rosa something. It's now it's got a different name now, but it's in Coahuila, across from Eagle Pass. And what I figured out that how he ended up over here was he was wagoneer who carried uh, had wagons and mules and transported cotton from that area. And at that time, he was transporting cotton from from there to Rio Grande City or Camargo, and that's where he met this science lady and married her. So that was my mystery solved right there. And so I came up with the book and put down his genealogy. It was always a brick wall where you could, there was nothing to go back to. Then I was able to connect with other Laureles, some that went to Revilla, which is now Guerrero, and some went to Laredo, and they all come from the same Laurel families, which were not really Laurel to start with. They were Fernandez, Fernandez, Cort, uh, Fernandez Cortez, I believe. And all those families were from the Monterrey area, related. They're all related. There was a lot of intermarriage around that area. And so finds out that Doc's wife, Elba, over there, is a Fernandez. And I said, hey, you all are related. He went to Eagle Pass to get away from all the relatives around here and found her over there. So that happened. I'm gonna go back to the brief history of San Isidro, um, the grants that were issued uh, in that area. I can, well, you got I can see it over here then. um, I have this book called Spanish Mexican Land Grants in South Texas. I recommend very highly that you, if you don't have this book, get it, because there's a lot of history here, a lot of history about not only the land grants, but how it's all started, and a lot of names and a lot of details. You can find this at the General Land Office in Austin, or you can order it. I think it's available in Amazon. I recommend that book, and of course other books, because I have the way I start. I'll talk about that, about genealogy later, but let me go back to the Santa Teresa, La Sal Colorada, and the Santa Cruz land grants. The Santa Teresa was first issued to Gregorio Vela. It was 8,856 acres, some of them in Jinghog and some of them in Stark County, and granted by the state of Tamaulipas, which was, at that time, it was Mexican territory. In 18, well, it was confirmed in 1852 by Texas legislature, but there was people living there since about the early 1800s, 1812, 1800, around that area. And I'll talk about confirmation, because what happened, there was a lot of when issued, these grants were not in Texas. They lay initially within the boundaries of the Spanish province of Santander, and which became the state of Tamaulipas following Mexico's independence in 1936, became a Texas Republic. It included this territory within the boundaries, but there was a lot of controversy because Mexico claimed its territory of all the way to Las the Nueces River and the Medina rivers, and that led to the American-Mexican War, and it was settled by it was settled and it became the United States, and so it became a matter for the state lawmakers to confirm, because there was a lot of controversy with this areas as far as confusion, mistrust, bitterness, litigation concerning who owned the land. So the original owners had to go before the state legislators and confirm that they had been living. They had to give proof that they had been living there for years. And because of the new Texas laws, the Texas laws were a lot different than what our original ancestors, settlers were used to. Because of the new laws, then they had to prove that they had possessed that land for years, some even before 1800. As soon as Camargo and Mier were established in 1852, more or less, people started coming across and ranching on this side of the river, and they stayed there. It was under the Camargo jurisdiction for a long time. So even up to after it became property of the United States, some records that I found indicate that they were certified over there in Camargo, and it was already the United States. So anyway, these people that were ranching over here for many years, since, like I said, before the 1800s and in some occasions, and then they had to go through the legislature to prove it. Some were approved, some were not. So those that were approved remained over here, and those that were not were, after the war, American-Mexican War, they were given the opportunity to go back to across the river or stay here and keep the land. A lot of them went back across the river. That kind of sounds like today. Then they were the ones that stayed here, and that's where most of us remain here. Like they say, we didn't cross the river. The river crossed us. And we're lucky, I guess, to be here anyway.
Can you hear me better?
Considering the situation that we have today.
What kind of phone is this?
So-
iPhone?
La Sal Colorada was about 17,889 acres and was granted to Gregorio Sáenz by Spain. At that time, it was still Spain. But he passed away before he could claim
That's Sal
it.
Colorado, that's
So
over
then
here.
it was passed on to his
Sal
son,
Colorado, that's
Vicente
over there next to
Sáenz,
Puerto Rico.
and he was granted La Sal Colorada grant in Stark County and some in Jim Hog.
Oh, here then.
That was re-granted actually by Mexico in 1836, and it was confirmed in 1852 to
Can everyone please mute?
1858 by the
We can't hear the
legislature,
speaker.
as I was saying. Santa Teresa
Am I muted?
was 8,000, like I said, 856 acres, and it was granted by the state of Tamaulipas, which was already Mexico, but had been possessed since 1812 or 1852 to 1852. Santa Cruz, there's Santa Teresa, below it is La Sal Colorada, and to the east is Santa Cruz. And that's where a lot of our ancestors all come from, the Villarreales and so forth. That was granted by Spain in 1809 to Francisco Ignacio Farias. Some just call him Francisco Farias, but his real name was Francisco Ignacio Farias. And it was confirmed in 1852. A lot of families that come from that area are Farias, like that was saying, Villarreales, Ramirez, Alvarados, and they all come from originally from Francisco Ignacio Farias. So a lot of relatives still live in that area, and a lot of them are right here today. I just finished a book on my mom's side of the family, and she was a Villarreal and married a Garcia. My grandfather Garcia came from the Perez and the Alvarez and the Longorias and Chapas and all those families. My grandfather actually was first cousin to Casimiro Perez Alvarez, which is her grandfather. And Casimiro Perez Alvarez was quite a character. He was a U.S. Deputy U.S. Marshal back in 1900. He was involved in Rio Grande City politics, and he studied in Mexico, two universities back in Mexico. He was fluent in Spanish and fluent in English and French too. And he also was an enumerator for the census. So you look at, I researched a lot of censuses from first census from 1840, 1860, 1880. And in 1900, he was an enumerator for the census around that area in San Isidro. He lived there for a while, according to what my cousin Araceli here was telling me, that he had roots there in San Isidro also. In San Isidro, Hinojosa, and Hinojosa, Peña, okay, Peña Garza, very related to you. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see, where are we? Oh my goodness. Anyway, Dr. Garza here covered a lot of my presentation. I was going to talk about what's next in here, oral histories, passed from generation to generation, like supposedly some of the troops, the Santana going to San Antonio, passed through there and were not Santana himself, but troops from Camargo and Mier that were joining Santana, passed through there. Cattle drives, because the water wells those water wells that were huge water waterwell with huge uh, water troughs. And they would stop there because there's no rivers between here and the Nueces, and very, very few places where you can find water. But all these cattle were driven through there at that time. Um, am am I supposed to talk about genealogy also, or because I have a long ways to go in my presentation, and I'm already running out of time. It's a good thing Dr. Garza here covered a lot of that. But I was supposed to talk about foods, um, dress, custom, food. Back in the day, they grow they grew most of the food in little fields, small fields and gardens. All ranches had small field and a garden where they would raise all kinds of vegetables and cantaloupe, onions, potatoes, anything that they could raise in that, watermelons and so forth, corn, and of course, corn was one of the big staples for them. And the vegetation around the area is mostly mesquite, brush. In San Isidro, it's redlands. And then you go a little bit north, and there's médanos, what they call médanos, sand dunes, that supposedly they were formed back in the day when there was no brush around that area, just grass. And the winds blowing from the coast blew all that sand over there and created all those dunes in that area. Religion, of course, customs. Well, there was the custom, of course, we were talking about that if you wanted to get married, you had to go uh, ask, you had to send somebody to ask for the bride. And some were met not so not so friendly and after after they were approved, then they had to wait a year before they got married. And and one of the customs, and of course the religion, mostly everybody was Catholic in that area. But there's a story about Dr. Cayetano Barrera. We used to say why he became a Methodist, because when he was in Monterrey attending church, his family, there was one of them had a baby, and the baby was crying in the church, and the priest said, get that little boy out of here. And they really got mad about that. So they left the church and never went back. There was a Methodist religion around the area at that time, so they joined the Methodist. And then they moved to La Reforma, where they uh, continued with their religion, but most of the other people were Catholic. And attire, well, most of they bought uh, clothes by the yards, and had some of the women were seamstresses that made their own clothes for the day. Even in my days when I was little, they had flour sacks, and my mom would make our shirts out of flour sacks. So then, and we were not, I mean, we were not that poor, considering my father was very entrepreneur, and he always finding ways to better himself. Um, that's about it about on that section, right? Yeah, furniture, some of it was made, homemade. Okay, I gotta go.
Thank you. Thank you, Raul. There's just not enough time to cover everything. Now, we had scheduled a break, or do we keep going?
The younger people might say that, but you know, there may be a time for a break now, just because, you know, people have been maybe consuming coffee and that sort of thing. 10-minute break.
Yeah, let's take a little 10-minute break and then we'll come back. Stretch the legs.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go big back. I got in last Friday. Last Friday. There's not enough time to talk about everything.
How are you?
Okay, if we could all start getting back to our seats now, we're going to get going again. Everybody back in. Got it. Got it. It is. It is. It's a lot. All right, everybody, come on in. We're going to get going.
I think you've got
We just need this. If you could announce that this is going to be passed around, with just getting everybody's name. Okay.
If I can get everybody's attention, please. We're passing around a clipboard, and it has a chart that we'd like to get your information.
Can't hear you, man.
I'm talking first. It's me, and then, yeah. Howdy!
So this.
Uy.
You hear that squeak?
Perfect.
That was awful.
They're passing around a sign-in sheet. If you can sign it, fill in the blanks. They are, what is the purpose?
Yeah, we have a signing sheet. And of course, we appreciate your participation. It's important that you give us your information, that you all have interest in history. And we'd like to be able to contact you later, inform you of events that are happening here at the museum. And the Museum of South Texas History, very vital, plays a very vital role in the preservation of who we are, where we came from, and all that will dictate where we're going. So some of the points that I wanted to point out in my discussion is that, you know, we have ranching traditions, but you know, entrepreneurship, education is what we want to promote the most. I know that in circumstances of poverty, for example, I think it's very important because we're here with some of the best educators that South Texas has to offer. And it's really important, in my opinion, that we as responsible individuals, as parents, uncles, members of the community, that we encourage education. Education is certainly the #1 tool to get out of poverty. Education is what will facilitate, if you have your entrepreneurial spirit alive in you, it will help you go further. And that's very vital, particularly because of the people that we have speaking today. And along those lines, our next speaker is Dr. Alejo Salinas. And like myself and Raul, Alejo was not born in the hospital. We're tough, old-time people. Alejo was born in La Reforma Ranch, on La Reforma Ranch. And La Reforma Ranch is going to be the subject matter of his talk. Dr. Alejo Salinas has a Bachelor of Arts in History and Government from Penn American College. He has a Master's in History, Government, and Education from Sam Houston State University. Dr. Salinas has a PhD in educational administration from the University of Texas in Austin. So he started his education career teaching in 1967, and then he went on to teach bilingual education, PSJA School District in 1971. Then he went on to be superintendent of the Hidalgo Independent School District for many, many years, holds the title of Superintendent Emeritus. He served for over 30 years as an elected trustee of the South Texas College Board and 6 years as city commissioner in Edinburgh. Dr. Salinas is the author of many books, two of which are here today. And he's a vital role in South Texas College. He is very supportive of education, the true meaning of why we have a community college like South Texas College. And to sum it up, in the area of education, he's done it all. Alejo.
Thank you, Dr. Garza, and certainly a good morning to everybody. Glad that all of you are here and that you're bearing with us as we move along with the program this morning. Dr. Garza reminds me of with his last comment, he's done it all. A friend of mine went to confession, and he told the priest, "Father, I've done it all." So my done it all is a little different, okay? Anyway, it's so beautiful to see so many wonderful people here. And since I'm going to be talking about the La Reforma area, how many of you are from La Reforma? Anybody here from La Reforma? Okay, we've got one. Nadia? Is it Nadia? Nadia, would you stand up, please? Okay. And who else? Martin? Oh, yes, Martin Perez. Okay, thank you. I just say that because I took some people with me on an excursion, and we were parked in front of your place, and you stopped to visit with us, and she opened the gate so it would go in and visit the place. Thank you. We love you for that. Okay. She had never met me, had no idea, but I explained to her that I was born there. And when I said that, she said, "You all want to come in?" So that was wonderful. Anyway, I have a job this morning, and that is to give you a history of the La Reforma. And I chose to take a different route because what you see today is not the La Reforma where I was born. Okay? And so in order for us to be in perspective, and I don't know, you got it? Okay, and I'm going to stop for a minute. Where's Dr. Peña? Dr. Peña, to the rescue. Dr. Pacheco over here will use the clicker to point to the map whenever, okay, if you can get the tour. Oh, you're clicking, but you're not seeing it out there, right? Or okay, great. Then you're off the hook. You're off the hook. Okay, but I'm not seeing that, okay. I was going to go to the map that I drew for them, so we can start at that particular point. There you go. Okay, so, but I'm going to be using that part over there. Okay, so here we go. I'm not a person that can do anything with art. I can barely make any things, any lines or something like that. But I wanted to talk to you about what La Reforma was when I was born. I was born on August the 7th, 1944, in this room right here. That was where my parents lived. This was a typical home of La Reforma. And I was born at 9 o'clock at night. The partera, the midwife, had already been brought in because she had helped with the birth of my 4 previous siblings. And so at 9 o'clock that night, I was born. My dad told me, and then I verified it with my birth certificate. Yes, it was 9 o'clock at night. I thought that it was at 9 o'clock in the morning because I always work. And I figured I had to be born in the morning because I love to work, especially in the morning. But it was at night. No, I don't work at night, as far as that goes. But anyway, this was our home. This is where I was born. This is La Reforma. This is a typical house of La Reforma during the time that I was there. And by the way, I have a brother that's going to turn 90 years old. He was born in this house. He was going to be with us this morning, but he had a little bit of a medical problem, so he couldn't join us. But he has been corroborating with the information that I'm giving you and saying, yes, it's right, it's right, it's right. So believe me, when I give you the information, it's going to be pretty accurate. But we start off with my birthplace. And what happened here is that we would go back to La Reforma to visit some people after we left there. And the time of the La Reforma that I'm talking about would be the early 30s, 1940s, and 1950s, and maybe up until 1960, because that is the La Reforma that I knew, that I was born into, where I spent my early years. But one day I went over there and took a picture of the house where we were born. And when my parents were going to have their 50th wedding anniversary, we didn't know what to give them. So I said, hey, let's have a painting of the house where we were born. So this was their gift from us to them and to the rest of the family, because it will forever remind us of where we were born and where we came from, other than our parents. So basically, this is the start of our life at La Reforma. And now I've got to show you what La Reforma was like. La Reforma was divided into two parts, el Barrio Viejo y el Barrio Nuevo. So we've got to go to El Barrio Viejo. And before I go any further, I have a commercial announcement to make. My book, Is It Time? Is It Time? And the translation is, ¿Ya será hora? Is it time? Ya será hora. And the reason that I'm taking this time to have a commercial break is because I have donated these books to the library, to the museum store. And if any of you are ever interested in buying them, they will be there. And this is my first book, and they all follow. The second one is, what is it? ¿Qué será? And there's a lot of meaning in these books and a lot of history, and it goes into detail about the social customs that we have that Raul was going to talk about, but he ran out of time. So if you want to know about how to make tamales, chicharrones, tortillas, whatever, you'll find all that information here. Done it all, doctor. We've done it all, okay? So this is the second one. And the third one is in the process of being printed. And that's a manuscript that I brought. And it is Strive for the Best. Lucha por lo mejor. And I'm bringing these in the context of what Dr. Garza said, that education is such an important thing for all of us. It is very, very important. And what has made us the people that we are today has been the great rearing that we got in La Tierra Santa, which is San Isidro, La Reforma, and that area around there, La Tierra Santa. And so, we're a special type of people because we were taught the values that we would like everybody else to have. And when we deviate from, you're right, Dr. Garza, if we deviate from, they were not there or they were not paying attention. There's no question about that. But you're going to find the best people that you could possibly find coming out of those areas around there. And we had an opportunity to become educated. And that brought us to a different level as far as helping the people that didn't. And my life is dedicated to helping those people that have not been able to get ahead, because God gave me a gift, and that gift was to help people, to educate people. And I've lived by that rule every day of my life since I became a professional. But let's talk about La Reforma. Let's talk about El Barrio Viejo. And I hope that, are you pointing out there? Okay. El Barrio Viejo. But before you can get to El Barrio Viejo, you want to know where La Reforma is. Those of us that grew up there, like I took the excursion I took, they had never been to La Reforma, they had never been to San Isidro, they had never been to La Gloria and that area. So they were opening their eyes because they didn't know what they were going to expect. But to get there, you have to go on 1017 from Highway 281, or you can come from Rio Grande, or you can go from the Mission area up into this, until you get to La Reforma. But once you get to La Reforma, you have to turn north. And now, of course, there's a gate. You can't go in there. It's private property. But when we were living there, it was all open. And you went through this particular road. When you got to the Guerra family house, which is right here, Guerra family house, then you could go through the gate. And this back here was El Barrio Viejo. And that's a very, very interesting thing about La Reforma. Once you get to El Barrio Viejo, you would go to the north, about maybe 3 blocks north, and you'd start seeing a row of houses just like this one. Everyone had the same house. We all had the same house to live in. So Carmen, you didn't have a better house than I did. They were all the same, okay? And the best thing about it is that if you lived in La Reforma and you were a sharecropper, and I'll go into the sharecropping business in a little bit, you could live at their home. It was provided by the Guerra family. And so, hey, we were all equal. We never knew we were poor, although we were dirt poor, poorer than some of the other families that had properties. We didn't have any property. We lived in a home that was provided to us because my father was a sharecropper. And so if you went to see the row of houses, and I remember the people that lived there, the family of Margarito Garcia lived here. In this house, there was Toribio Beltran, who moved to San Antonio. Interesting thing about Toribio Beltran, he had become a widower, and he had a little 3-year-old child. And when he went to work every day, he left the child at home by herself. And I would go and sit with her on the porch when I was about 3 years old, but she would never leave the house because the instructions were, you don't leave the house. And Toribio didn't want to burden anybody by asking him to take care of his child. And she would stay there by herself all day long until her father came back. And so in a community where everybody respects everybody, there was respect for everything. And that was La Reforma. Later, when he moved away, Longoria family from the valley moved over there because they wanted to go into farming. And they found out that farming was very difficult in the La Reforma area because it was dry land farming. The only thing you could raise was cotton if you were lucky. And most of the time, it was maybe a bale or two per year that you'd be able to harvest. My dad went through some very difficult times trying to make a living for us with the land producing very little. So the Beltran family lived there, the Longoria family lived there later, and they didn't stay very long. They moved out of there real quick because they were not getting the return for their investment as far as farming was concerned. Then my house, this house, the Salinas family. And by the way, if you notice, all of them had porches up front, all of them. And I'm going to explain the details of the house in a little bit. But this is our house. And there were 6 of us born there to Alejo and Santos Salinas, my parents. And then after that, that was my grandmother's house. And after that, it was the Juan Longoria family house. And the last one was the Beltran family. Now, in the Barrio Viejo, there was only one family that had mechanical transportation, motorized transportation. And up to the time that we left La Reforma, which was in about 1952, we got around in a horse-drawn wagon, a horse-drawn wagon. My dad had 2 mules, and he'd hook them up to the wagon, and that's how we got around. There was only one family that had a motorized vehicle, and those were the Beltrans, because they would migrate, and they had this big truck they got around in. And whenever they were going to go to San Isidro, anywhere they were going to go, everybody piled up in the back of the truck, and they were their transportation for everybody. But this was the setting of El Barrio Viejo. Now, as you entered into El Barrio Viejo, there was a corral, a big corral here with a huge water trough, huge. And the water trough was divided in 2 parts. There was a part on the west side and a part on the east side. And on top of the water trough, there was a separation between the 2 sides, and then it had something like a roof on top. And we would climb on that make-believe roof, and we would gallop from one end to the other, thinking that I was a horse. And so the horse never threw us off, by the way. But that's the way that was built. In the afternoons, we could not be in this area here because the cowboys that worked La Reforma would bring the cattle in for watering. And we were told, you don't go there when the cows are coming in for water. And the cowboys were very good. I mean, they were great. They were really cowboys. Let me tell you, I've never seen a real cowboy like I did when I lived at La Reforma. Now, right next to the dirt road, the dirt, I painted green because I didn't have brown. But the dirt road here that led this way, the Guerra family had a lumber yard. They had their own lumber yard, the only one that existed in that area. And so they provided the lumber for the homes that they had built for the people that lived there. And of course, to sell lumber to the community. And right across from there was La Tienda Vieja, the old store at La Reforma. And I got a chance to walk into the old store when I was a kid. It had been abandoned. The doors were open. The west part of the building was used for storing hay bales. But as you entered, there were materials all over the place that had stayed behind when the store was vacated. And everything was there. And a lot of people that lived at La Reforma, of which over a period of time were about 75 individuals. My brother started counting, said there were about 75, the highest population that we had at La Reforma at one time. They'd go in there. Nobody took anything. Nobody. Honesty is something that is very important for the people that grew up during our generation. And one of the things that was certainly embedded in us by our parents, you don't take what doesn't belong to you. It's in my book. Read it. It's on sale at the store. One time I was giving a graduation speech and I had to change my clothes. It was part of the presentation. And I stopped and say, y ahora tenemos un anuncio para todos ustedes, así es que viene la directora de la escuela a darles el anuncio mientras yo regreso. And I came back with my regalia and continued my presentation. So every once in a while, I'm going to go ahead and make reference to these. And you know, you're probably wondering, how did he select y hacer ahora? But I'm waiting for you to ask so that I can answer that question. I'm not going to tax your minds. But anyway, this was El Barrio Viejo. This is what really became part of the foundation of the La Reforma community. Now, after that, the road, the main road, which is Highway 1017, was paved. And the La Reforma brothers and the La Reforma family decided to open their new store up front. This was the Barrio Nuevo, the Barrio Nuevo. And we knew it as El Barrio Viejo and El Barrio Nuevo. We were one big family at La Reforma, but we were divided by when the barrios were developed. But it was still one big happy family there. Well, the Barrio Nuevo, again, you had as the center the Guerra family house. And right to the north of it, there was a 2-car garage. And to the west, there was a 3-car garage. And I remember that the cars that were parked here were Buicks, Oldsmobiles, and Pontiacs. Beautiful cars. As a kid, I could remember. I still love old cars, by the way. We were working on an old truck yesterday afternoon. But anyway, I could see those, and I said, oh, my God, how beautiful. I didn't know what they were. They were cars. You know, we had never ridden in a car. I rode a wagon pulled by mules. And so I had never been in a car for riding anywhere. I'd been in the Beltran truck in the back, so I knew how bumpy that was. But anyway, so we had this gate that divided El Barrio Viejo from El Barrio Nuevo. And so, and the reason there was a gate there, the cattle came to drink water every day. So that gate had to be closed. And so the Guerra family continued to live here. That's where they had initially settled the home. And there's a model in the back there that pretty much shows what the place looks like. And these were for their vehicles right here. And on the Guerra family side, you had a school, La Reforma School. And you know, as I grew older, there you are, thank you for bringing that up. Uh, you want to turn it, does it help? Okay, there it says La Reforma Ranch. Thank you. Uh, as I got older, I was visiting with my dad. My dad got to be 95 years old, and his mind was perfect, perfect mind. And I would visit with him, and I'd get him to talk. And he said, "We had a school at La Reforma," and so I left it at that. And much, much later, I wanted to verify what my dad had told me. My dad was not a liar because remember, we don't lie at La Reforma. And I'll make a confession in a little bit, but but we don't lie at La Reforma. We tell the truth. That's all there is to it. That whip is there to take care of you. Lie to your parents. Anyway, so uh, I wanted to make sure, and I asked people that were in their late 80s, early 90s. My brother himself, who's the oldest in the family at 90 years old, couldn't remember if there had been a school at La Reforma. So I asked some of the Garza people that lived there, that grew up there, that were born there. We've never heard of a school at La Reforma. And so later I learned that there was one. There's information that has been written and recorded that there was a school at La Reforma. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I was going through family documents, and I pulled up a report card. It was a report card from the La Reforma school. My dad had gone to school there for 1 month only 1 month. He was 14 years old. He was enrolled at the third grade level, and he could only go 1 month. He was a B student. I said, well, maybe if he stayed a second month, he could have been a B plus, and maybe the third an A student. But that was my dad's report card. He had gone to school at La Reforma. Verified. Was there a school? Yes, there was a school. I was satisfied, and I started telling everybody about it. And the school was right next to, we're looking at the school right here, right next to the Guerra family house. And then next to them was a Cáceres home. The Cáceres gentleman, Mr. Cáceres, was responsible for making sure that there was water supply in the community. And that was his job at the, I call it a village. This was a village to me. So the Cáceres lived there, and today there's an elevated concrete water tower up there. A monument that you're going to see if you drive by there or you spend some time there. That water tower was built by a Polish husband and wife team. And they built a lot of them in the San Isidro area. My uncle Tomas helped them build that particular water tower. And he told me the history about it. And my uncle didn't die. He didn't lie. He lived at La Reforma. He was raised there. And so he told me about that. And right next to it, there were two gins, an old gin and a new gin. And I think we have the old gin you can see up there where the smokestack is. It was operated by wood, burning wood, mesquite. There was a lot of mesquite wood. All you wanted, all you could use. And they had to create steam. The boiler itself was so big that you would fit inside standing up. So it produced the energy to drive the engines that took care of processing the cotton. Well, I think it was in the late 40s, the natural gas was discovered on the Guerra property, and they decided to build a brand new gin that was operated by natural gas. So that was the end of the old gin, and eventually they tore it down. And on the bottom, you see the new gin, and the warehouse. The Quonset building was a warehouse where the seed was kept, the cotton seed. And there it was processed and sold to the farmers for the next year's crop. Now I guess I use it just as old storage, pretty much. I haven't been there in a long, long time. But I remember that we'd sneak in there every once in a while, and we would jump on the cotton seed. It was a cushion, a nice cushion. It was clean, and we had fun doing that. I don't know if too many people found out that we were there, but it did happen. But that's not part of the confession that I have to make. Anyway, so we had El Barrio Viejo. We've gone to the water tower. We've gone to the old gin. We've got to the new gin. And there was a small house there that nobody can remember who lived there. All that my brother could remember was that a lady lived there and my mother used to visit there. Maybe it was before I was born. I don't remember. I don't remember the house. I don't remember it. Nobody remembers the house, but my brother said there was a house right there. Now let's jump to the east side of El Barrio Nuevo, starting with the store. The store is now gone, but it served for a long, long time. And when you moved from the old store to the new store, a lot of the items stayed behind because the old store was really like an emporium. You could find clothes, you could find materials to make clothes, you could find perfumes, you could find so many things that were still laying there. Those did not come to the new store. The new store was catering more to the ranching community, the windmills, the water wells, and things like that. So this was a new store. They did have a few items that you used for meals and stuff like that. But the new store, and right on the west side was a gas pump that was hand operated. Okay, it was hand operated, and there was a clear glass that would fill up with gas, and that's how you measured how many gallons you were going to buy. Of course, there was no gasoline up here because nobody had a vehicle. Now over here, the cars went by. Let's sell gas. Well, right next to it was the house of Manuel Guerra. Manuel Guerra was the administrator of the Guerra properties and businesses. And next to him lived Nicasio Hinojosa, and then my uncle Viviano. He was the mechanic for wagons and old cars and new cars, whatever happened to come in there, he'd fix it. But anyway, this is the La Reforma that I'm talking about. And back behind the store, there was a chow house. The Guerra family hired these people to come in and cook for the ranch hands. And anybody else that wanted to go in there, everybody else had to pay, but the ranch hands, it was free food. And next to him was the Fernandez house. And then there was the Adan Ramirez house. He was a bachelor. There was a special house for him. He had lost an arm in one of the gins, and so he stayed there for the rest of his life. And then there was a beauty shop. Emma Garza was trained as a beautician, and she went back and she set up a beauty shop. And it's all in my book. Read about it. If you want to know how burning hair smells, it's in the book. She had a beauty shop right there, and her parents, Julio Garza and his family, lived here. So she put their business right next to the house. Now, over here, across the street, was the Gilberto Garza home. Gilberto married Emma, and they built a house here. At the corner here, as you go into La Reforma, there's a curve. And at the curve, there was a baseball field. People enjoyed playing baseball every weekend. It was adults, male adults. And the entire community and from other communities in the area would come over and play. My dad got to play baseball here. Now, what else did La Reforma have that was unique? A band. Do we have the band up there? Hey, there's the band. And there's my dad. He played in the band. Dad, how'd you learn to play music? Remember, he only was in school 1 month. And I don't think they had music in the curriculum as far as it goes. But he said, well, un profesor de México vino, que era profesor de música, y él nos enseñó a tocar. And that's how he learned to play and wound up playing in the La Reforma band. I'm not lying, it says La Reforma band right there, okay? So there were other activities, like the women enjoyed putting quilts together. And I know my mother went into quilting quite a bit. All the women would come together and they'd sew all day long and finish a quilt and so forth. And we were kids, just little kids, and they'd throw us under the quilt that they were working on. And they had a wonderful time visiting. Y no lo vas a creer, aquel que te platiqué, aquella que te platiqué, and we were wondering, well, who are they? But anyway, it was a wonderful opportunity for them to get together. There were other events, like when somebody passed away, everybody was there. The body was treated at the home where they died most of the time. My grandmother fixed up my grandfather when she prepared the body for viewing at her house, and then it was followed by the funeral the following day. So everything was done there. Were there doctors in the area? Not at La Reforma. If you got sick, you depended on home cures. If you had a big cut, mom would go out to the corners of the house, no sheetrock, go out there and get the spider webs and put a little bit of kerosene on there, put it on the wound, and you're ready to go. You're gonna be all right. But we also had a man that practiced a little bit of medicine in San Isidro, El Doctor Lopez, and he was good at penicillin, which he got from Mexico. Penicillin would cure just about anything. He really wasn't a doctor. He never studied medicine, but he felt confident enough to be able to help the community with their medical needs. Now, for delivering babies, there was Juanita Peña. She delivered every baby around the area. And so those were the medical services that we had. If you, no curanderas around there that I know of, by the way, but if you had a real bad emergency, you had to go to Rio Grande, where there was a hospital, or Mission, which was the closest place. La Reforma, it wasn't a place where rich people lived, but we were very rich and very blessed that we had a home that was provided for us. It was provided for us because my dad and all the people that were there were sharecroppers, and they were indebted to pay 1/4 of the crop that came in to the organization. And for that, we kept 75%, and they got 25%, and we got a home. And here, what I want to tell you is that this water tower provided water for this part of the Barrio Nuevo, and this part here, and this part here. Over here, we had a water tower that provided water to all these homes over here, and a water spigot to each house. This was in the early 1930s. Folks, whoever built up La Reforma had a vision, a beautiful vision. And then they selected the families that came in. There were no problems. You're waiting for the confession. I'm going to do it in a minute before they stop me again. I got it. I'll do what President Clinton said when I'm done. Anyway, it was a beautiful place. Everybody got along. Nobody fought. We were all rich because we all had the same type of house. We had nothing. We were rich. And there's a lot of the stuff that I wish I could share with you. But yes, when we reflect, there was a lot of poverty, but a lot of educated people that went on to get an education came out of La Reforma. They had roots in La Reforma. How wonderful, how beautiful that we had a family like the Guerra family that cared about the people that lived there, that cared about their families, that stayed in touch with us for a long, long time. And now, are you ready for the confession? Are you sure? You promise never to tell anybody? Okay, I want to introduce Father Jose Salazar, who is here. Father, can you raise your hand? Okay, he's going to be my confessor today. Thank you, Father, for being here. We enjoy your sermons. He was at our 10 o'clock Mass at Sacred Heart last week. And of course, we always enjoy having him there. He's a family member. I was driving through Mathis, and he was the parish priest at Mathis there for a while. And he'd always invited me to go over. And I went over, but he wasn't there. So I turned around and said, I'm going to head home. I got stopped by the police, the Mathis police. He said, you were speeding. I was? I don't think so. He said, you were speeding. I said, I told him, are you Catholic? He said, yes. I said, well, you ought to go to church more often, because I asked him if he'd been to church recently. I said, you ought to go to church more often. Father Jose Salazar is my relative, and he's a wonderful priest, and you should go. And then he forgot about giving me a ticket and said, you can go, sir. Father, I used your name. That's what I'm confessing. Anyway, how wonderful to be a part of this presentation. Thank you for listening to me. I hope I didn't bore you to death. There's so much more. They're in the book. Remember, they're for sale at the store here, and they will continue to be there. The only place that they're going to be for sale from now on. Thank you very much. Dios me los bendiga a todos.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salinas. Father Salazar, I think purgatory is looking pretty good right about now. Uh, so, you know, on the education side, and of course we have Belinda that's still to present, and her daughter Amanda. But you know, on the education side, you know how many of these communities they did have their own little schools, and the San Isidro School District. I, in my mind, don't have the exact um, year, but how education went back in the day um, in present day San Isidro. It was in the 1920s, around 1925, that the first big building was built. And they had county education. There was a county superintendent. And the first county superintendent that I've come across for Stark County, her name was Florence Scott. And then in the and then in the 1940s, that's when I think 1947, the San Isidro Independent School District got its own school board and so forth. And also Arnulfo Martinez, Dr. Arnulfo Martinez, originally from Stark County, was superintendent of schools for Stark County for a while. And then he became a professor at the university. At this time, I want to present our next speaker, and her name is Amanda Reyes Villarreal. She is a fellow Aggie. She graduated from San Isidro High School in 2016, from Texas A&M University in 2019 with a degree in political science with a minor in Latino American Studies. Right now, she's in law school, and she's at the Lincoln Memorial University in Knoxville, Tennessee. And it is great pleasure to have the next generation interested in the things that we're interested in, because history and genealogy many times becomes a subject of interest almost when it's too late for us. And it's really important that we have young individuals interested in this subject matter. So at this time, Amanda.
I don't really print stuff anymore. I use everything on my laptop, so I guess that's part of the new generation thing. But hello everyone, thank you for being here. Lovely to see people that I know and people that I don't know. I'm also glad to be back for this short time to visit my family and my friends. For the sake of time, I do have a lot of little towns. Not a lot, but I guess the few little towns that I want to talk about, or that I do want to talk about, I'm just going to kind of give you the important and interesting information. So for San Isidro, I actually took this picture like 2 days ago. This is inside our Catholic church, and I'll show you pictures of the church now and the original church that we had before. But for San Isidro, Santiago Peña bought the land from descendants of G.V. Lund, and then his nephew Blas Peña settled and founded in 1877, although, as Dr. Garza had talked at the beginning of this presentation, you know, people have already been living here years prior, right? But they were recognized in 1877. And Blas Peña's wife, Micaela Olivares, named it San Isidro Labrador after the patron saint of farmers and ranchers. And then a post office was opened in 1904, and then it operated until 1913 with a population of 10, and it only had one business in 1933. And then gradually more community members have been coming and going. We've seen numbers go up, we've seen numbers go down, just depends on the time, the era. Like in the 60s, I believe there was an oil boom going on in San Isidro, so there was like 500 students at San Isidro ISD, but now I think we're probably at like 200. But the current population is 198 people, according to the United States Census. Not sure if that's correct, but we'll see. So here is the Old San Isidro Catholic Church. Oh, you can't see it? Whoops. Old San Isidro Catholic Church, circa 1881. If you'll notice there at the top, there is a bell. And if you notice here on how it looks today, there is no bell. When they were remodeling the roof and fixing up the church, they placed the bell in a plastic see-through box here somewhere on the side. Somebody stole it, unfortunately. Yeah, they were not from San Isidro. And the way and the way we found out about it was I guess my grandfather's sister, she was working at the hospital in Corpus Christi. Someone went to the hospital, knew that she was from San Isidro, and said, "Hey, what happened to the bell?" And she goes, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Called my grandmother, asked my grandmother. That's how people were like, "Wait a minute, where's the bell?" So unfortunately, we don't have the bell, but the church is still there, and they still use it from time to time. I know they use it, especially when we're, in a serious drought and they pray for rain. They go to that church, and you can definitely, I think, contact Miss Lucy de Lopez, and she can give you access to, if you wanted to visit the church, just give her some notice ahead of time. And then let's see. Okay, so here we have the San Isidro Catholic Church that we use today. It was built in 1963. It was commissioned by Father Herrero, I believe. And here you'll see that's what it looked like when it was completely built. This is what it looks like in the stages of being built here in 1963 or 62, 63. And then here I took pictures of what, it looks like from the balcony. All these beautiful pews and paintings, and they repainted here because I know I wasn't here for that. But they repainted that and it looks so beautiful on the inside. I encourage everyone that if you visit San Isidro, please attend a mass. I know they would really appreciate it, and just to admire the beautiful architecture that is inside and the paintings. The paintings are actually from Spain, and so is this statue. Saint Isidore statue is imported from Spain. I believe Father Herrero also commissioned that as well. Let me see. I think that's it for that slide. Oh, yes. And then here are all the paintings that were commissioned from Spain. These are all along the walls. I tried my best to get really nice pictures of them, but they kind of tell the story of Jesus Christ and everything that he went through in the sequential order. Yes. I don't think I put them in order though. But okay. So now we'll talk about the old water well. This one is located on Old San Isidro Road. This one was built in the late 1700s by the early Spanish settlers. This is currently sitting on property that is owned by my grandfather, Raul Villarreal. He inherited this property through the Olivares family line that I will show a picture of at some point. If not, I made all these beautiful diagrams you see, so please feel free to look around and look at the pictures that I have. But I don't know much about water wells, so I will let Dr. McCallan, Mr. McCallan, and my grandfather speak a little bit more about it. But the one thing my grandfather did tell me was fact or fiction, and this is for you all to, tell me if you believe it or not. But apparently, the story is that Mexican General Santa Anna's forces stopped to rest here at this Noria after crossing the Rio Grande River to fight the Tejanos at the Alamo so that they can water their horses and take a rest break. So I'll play a snippet of this video. Oh, here you go. Perfect.
Wife came through from Morelos, would be here now. The privilege to run their own camp, but they had to work with communities to do that. And they had a little church, they had a little school here. They had everything, and just everybody would come from as far away as 5, 10 miles. Some would even stay with their family here with our family, which was were the settlers here. And it's a lot of this has been in the family since the Brent, the Spanish Grant. I'll probably go back to Guerrero Rivera to my ancestry. And you're talking about maybe 4 or 5 generations. Yeah. It's just amazing what's here. It needs to be redone, remodeled, and put back to where people 100 years from now see what people used to do 100 years back or 200 years back. The only reason this is in the shape it's in is because it's being kept with a brush around it, so people cannot climb and get in here and tear into it. Otherwise, it would be in real bad shape, but I would say it's 90% from what it used to be when it was first built. And it don't take a whole lot to restore and fix what's here. I wouldn't want to change what's there. Keep let it look like it is right now. Even the color, I would even hate to change the color on it. Just repair whatever we have. And anybody has ideas or or knows somebody that we can work with. I want to thank you guys and everybody in the museum and everybody for being so interested in what's still left of what we have.
The Museum of South Texas History is so lucky to have a family like Raul Villarreal and to open their gate to us to see some of the earliest livestock watering facilities in the state of Texas, right here in San Isidro, Texas. These were probably built preceding the issuing of the land grant of Santa Teresa. And to make an application for the Spanish land grant, you had to prove that your land was capable of sustaining livestock. What you see here is water well system, not just a dug well. You'd see the water trough. And that was fed by a PINA, a water storage tank. And if you look farther to the south, there's another wall. And the water trough on that wall is on the south side. That would total about 140 feet of watering space for livestock. And the storage tank was to have water during the rush hour. You see the dug well that has since collapsed and it folded inward and exposing the sciatis, the carved caliche rock that these old structures were made out of. And you see the pila, the storage tank, but what you don't see is the tinaja. That's all of these structures had the tinaja. The tinaja was a naturally formed hole in the caliche rock that they would chip out and use as a basin to pour the bucket of water into so it wouldn't erode the masonry. Looking down into the tinaja, which in turn would run the water down through a little aquifer that was covered, making it a tube into the water storage tank. At the distance, you'll see that the family has put barriers around so people wouldn't fall in the water well. It's an active water well. It's a dug well, a noria de cubo, and it was used to fill the water troughs as well. I'm Jim McAllen. Hope you enjoyed this story.
Perfect. I believe this water well is the largest in the state of Texas and most complete in the state of Texas. I think I saw that somewhere, but don't quote me on that. And then so in the 1960s, this is my grandfather here, right here. He was a senior in this photo, and I'll let him tell you what really happened here. But as you can see, clearly there was flooding in San Isidro. Which never happens. If you're from San Isidro, you know it never gets flooded. It's a good guess. Good guess.
Great. Coach Isidro was doing, some kind of work on that water well, on that, oil well. And, something that went wrong with the throughout preventative, they probably didn't put any or something that, it grew. It just grew out of the ground, and it was all water coming out. And it grew for about, I don't know exactly what it was, probably 45 to 60 days. Continuously, until they find it stop.
And it created like a lake.
It created a big, went to the property, from the property where it grew, went to our property. From all the guys, and it made a huge, there was just huge amounts of water. Good fresh water came out of the ground, and it was just a big flow coming out of the well. You could see the flow coming out, about 25 feet high.
It looked like a geyser.
No?
It looked like a geyser.
Yeah,
And then where were you in the boat?
because we couldn't get, we were, it was for the annual step. And we just
For
got
fun,
busy.
for fun.
Yeah. well,
So after interviewing my grandfather, my grandma, who doesn't like to be interviewed, adds on to this story and says, oh yeah, there was, it came out in the newspaper and we had hundreds of people coming in every single day to come and see this fountain of water. And the families were never compensated for, this flooding and whatnot. And I actually reached out to the company to ask if they had any record of it. I still have yet to hear from them. Yes, ma'am. Really? Wow. Coats for coats. Thank you for sharing. So the next thing I want to talk about is Delmita. And over the last week, I've been filled with information from the family, from the grandchildren of Niceforo G. Peña Sr. There's so much. I cannot put it in to words, I guess, how much like history is just in this little section of San Isidro. But for the purposes of time, it was founded in 1919 by Niceforo G. Peña, which is, well, this man, and his wife, Sabas Garza, and this is little Niceforo Jr. here, their firstborn son. They moved from Santa Teresa, which is present-day Jim Hug County, to Zaragoza. And Zaragoza had to change its name because of the Zaragoza in Reeves County, which I believe is in West Texas. So they changed the name officially April 1st in 1931. And it's likely because the mails kept getting mixed up. Yeah, Zaragoza and Zaragoza kept getting mixed up. There were no zip codes. Zip codes didn't exist until 1963. So you can imagine, putting the name Zaragoza or Zaragoza with a Z or an S, and your mail was going all the way to West Texas, or it was coming all the way to Delmita. And so how it was changed was that they had 10 children, 7 boys and 3 girls. And Niceforo Peña Sr. had his 7 boys pick a letter from a container. He cut 26 little pieces of paper, put the entire alphabet on each, and then he had them pick 1 letter each. And so when each boy picked out a letter, it came out to the word Delmita, and that's how Delmita got its name. The first postmaster was little Niceforo Jr. for about a year, and then he left, got married, went to work somewhere else. The second postmaster was Antonio Peña, and he was there for 40 years, from 1932 to 1972, and his brother Genovevo was the clerk for 28 years, retiring at the same time as his brother in 1972. And then the new post office was built in 1991. Here we have the original Peña home that's no longer standing today, but this was when it snowed in San Isidro, I believe back in 2004. That's when it was standing, and then after years and years of hurricanes, rains, winds, all of that, things eventually fall apart. Let me see. Okay, So this is a painting that I got from the granddaughter of Nicéforo Sr., Graciela Peña Redondo. I went to her house. I talked to her. She had this picture, this painting that somebody did in 1980 of what the post office used to look like. And my grandmother, Gloria Rojas Villarreal, actually worked there in 1982. She became the third postmaster, and she worked there from 1982 all the way up until 2012. I do want to note that as old as this post office looks, they used to do horseback and buggy back before when it was still Zaragoza. And then even when it changed to Delmita, I believe Roman Lopez, who is brother or uncle to the late Reyes Lopez of the San Isidro community, he was the second mail carrier. He was the second mail carrier, and he was the mail carrier for many, many, many years. And then upon his retirement, he then gave it to his daughter, Rebecca Lopez, who took over the route. But by then they had vehicles. But from what my grandmother says, that Genovevo, the clerk before her, told her was that the horses would go from Lynn to Puerto Rico to Delmita, Delmita to Santa Elena, and they would switch horses in Delmita. They would have to switch the horse because the horse was tired. Switch horses, go all the way back via Pony Express, and then same route back. Switch back to the original horse, and then ride all the way back to Lynn. This is the current post office today. Still in use. It actually just merged, I want to say maybe a few years ago, with the San Isidro post office. So now it's a Delmita San Isidro post office. So San Isidro residents will have to drive to Delmita for that. This used to be a movie theater owned by the Peñas. The grandchildren could not tell me when it opened. They could not remember the year it opened, but they do know that it closed in 1952 upon the death of their grandmother, Sabas Garza, which is the lady pictured here. She, the night that she died, her favorite movie was Cantinflas, and they were playing it in that movie theater. She was watching the movie with her family, having a great time, laughing and laughing and laughing. She went home. She passed away in her sleep. The next day, family closed the doors of the movie theater. And that movie theater is no longer standing, unfortunately. Again, over time, things fall apart with the weather. Let's see what we have. Next, we have the old Delmita Church. Not in use today. This part is actually falling apart, but it's boarded up. I remember as a kid when we would do the Pray for Rain, we would go to the old San Isidro Church and the Delmita Church. I remember one time we went inside the church to have mass, and I remember telling my grandma, I'm never coming back. There's no AC. It was so hot in there. And she goes, well, this is the way we used to live. And I said, well, I'm glad I was not born at your time. But it was built in 1943. We actually found that out recently. One of my tias sent my grandmother a picture of, I guess it was a formal opening letter sent to the community members saying, please come to the opening of the new Delmita Church. And it's over here in this little section right here, if you would like to read it. Mr. Raul Garza's grandfather, Gregorio Garcia, actually donated the land that the church sits on. Let's see. And then we have El Ranchito Grocery and Meat Market, formerly known as Alamo Grocery and Meat Market. I also talked to the children, the children of Hilario Alvarado. They opened this in the 1950s, and then they closed it upon Hilario Sr.'s death in the 1990s. And then his daughter, Margarita, reopened it as El Ranchito with her husband in the 90s up until 2015. They had the best raspas in town, and we miss them very much. So Miss Soto, if you're watching, we miss your raspas. But they had the best raspas in town, and unfortunately now nobody in San Isidro has raspas. So if anybody has any family members that's willing to open up a raspa stand, please do. And next we have La Gloria, Texas. I found out just yesterday, upon talking to Mr. Garza, that this actually used to be La Sal Colorada. And I wondered on the map, every time people talked about it, I said, I don't even know where that's at. And he goes, oh, it's La Gloria. Oh, cool. But it's at the intersection of Farm Road 755 and 1017. It's one of those you blink and you miss it kind of little cities. It's just the blinking light and then a couple houses. But back then, they actually used to have 2 gas stations, 3 stores, a garage, an oil refinery, movie theater, cotton gin. And today they just have the Justice of the Peace, a post office that was actually in Santa Elena further. Post office used to be over here, and they moved it over here. There's a story I found, an article, and I put it on one of these boards where supposedly that the lady that was running the post office in Santa Elena moved it because she got married and her husband lived in La Gloria, moved to La Gloria, and in turn moved the building also to La Gloria. So that, and that's why currently the post office still says Santa Elena on it, but it sits in La Gloria. And then in La Gloria, we also have the Santa Maria Bull Ring. It was owned by Fred Rank for many years, and now it's owned by a guy from Mexico who decided to reopen it. And I encourage everybody to go see. It's bloodless bullfights. Nothing happens to the animals. They put a flower on Velcro on its back, and the job of the matador is to pull it off, just the flower, and that's it. It's a great show to watch. I've been a few times growing up, and I really loved watching it. I recommend and encourage everybody to go. Yes. Yes. Oh, wow. Oh, La Gloria. La Gloria. So the story isn't true then. Well, whoever wrote the article. In the very, yeah. Thank you. And then we have Benjamin Garcia's grocery store. And the fun fact about this store and the store below it, they were brothers who they were about a quarter mile apart, and they were competing against each other for groceries and markets and hardware. Both buildings are still standing today. They're not used at all, as you can see in these pictures, but you know, it's nice to have these memories to drive by and say, well, I wonder what that was. And you get to ask. I get to ask my grandpa when we go to one of his ranches, like, hey, what was that? Oh, that used to be a store where so-and-so would sell this or so-and-so would sell that. And then the movie theater. There's also another movie theater in La Gloria. This one actually had famous actors and singers such as Pedro Infante, Antonio Aguilar, Lydia Mendoza, have all been said to have visited here. I couldn't find any articles, but I believe everybody. And I heard that there was a third movie theater somewhere on someone's ranch, but I could not track the person down to actually ask them. Yes. It's on your ranch. Perfect. On Frank Montalvo's ranch. Mm-hmm. Slab of cement. Okay. So on a like a drive-in, but you would walk and sit on the concrete. Okay. Okay. On a little carport. Antonio Montalvo. Antonia Montalvo. It was. Thank you. Thank you for that. And then briefly, Santa Elena. Oop, where's my? There we go. Also located in the same area as you saw on the map. Over here. Let me go back. I don't really know much about Santa Elena. I do know that it was established in 1899, and there was a school there with an enrollment of 25 at that time. I couldn't find any records of it, unfortunately, that I tried helping my mom research for, but you will see later, you know, all the little schools. And then it had a couple businesses. What I did learn after doing all this research is that San Isidro was such a was such a busy town compared to how I grew up with it, where I always thought there's nothing to do here. I don't want to come back and I don't want to stay. But after being gone for a long time, I do want to come home. I do want to move back home from when I'm done with law school, and I would love to live there and learn more about the history, about my family tree, my family line. And I encourage all the young people that are watching to do the same, because it's so important to know where we came from in our history. And we're not going to have our grandparents for our entire life. We're not going to have our parents forever either. And so someone has to keep up these stories and keep up these memories, and it falls on us and everybody after us. Yeah.
That picture?
Yeah.
Well, it's not over yet. That, that picture there is from Santa Elena in Spain. We were touring there with our family, wives, Doc, my brother over there, Gilbert, myself, and David. And we were going from Granada up to Madrid. And on the way over, the little bus that we had rented to tourists broke down. Water hose, something happened. So they took us to this little town. It happened to be named Santa Elena. And we got to spend some time there and visit the church, took some pictures. And to me, it seemed like that was a God sent thing that the bus broke down so that we could visit there in Santa Elena, because it has to do with our Santa Elena over here, where our Garza ancestors lived there in Santa Elena.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Last but not least, education. We're going to go over briefly education. I've learned, like I said, a lot. I've helped my mom do research on the education side. And man, oh man, do we have a lot of history in San Isidro with education. And there's no better person than to, like, for me, is than my mom, because she's been the biggest inspiration for me in terms of education and motivating me and inspiring me to continue my education and to share my knowledge with everybody. She's the 6th generation resident residing in Delmita, Texas, currently, right across my grandparents. She lives with my father, Armando Reyes, and then my brother, Armando Jr., and my sister, Isabella Reyes, while I live 1,000 miles away in Knoxville, Tennessee. Who happened to walk in? Yes. She is currently employed with the Hidalgo County as Chief Administrator for External Affairs in Precinct 4. That is in Hidalgo County. She has over 30 years experience in leadership and administration positions. She currently serves on the San Isidro ISD Board of Trustees and has since November 2012 holding positions of President and Vice President. She is a strong proponent of education, serving in various leadership positions within the Region 1 School Board Association, Legislative Advisory Council member, and as a board member of the Texas Association of School Board Risk Fund. She has earned the Master Trustee distinction. She is a public servant at heart and serves the communities of Star and Hidalgo County, and she has been for many years, for my entire life. Vilinda was recently recognized with a regional award by the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council for her collaboration and dedication to the Rio Grande Valley. She earned her master's degree from the University of North Texas and a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas Pan American, and is a 1990 graduate of San Isidro ISD. And I am proud to introduce my mom, Vilinda Reyes.
I'm gonna need this. Okay. Want to get the clicker? Sorry.
Okay, we'll find the slides.
Well, good afternoon. It's not good morning anymore. So I know that I am the one between that needs for lunch, right? So thank you for coming here today. Thank you, Dr. Guajardo and Ms. Peña, for giving us this opportunity. I'm not sure how many minutes I have, but I'm going to try to go really quick through all of this. Just hearing everybody speak today, just and the research we've been doing, trying to put together something has just really provided me with a sense of identity and a recognition of that. I love my community. I chose to move back to my community in 2007. In 5th grade, my daughter had an assignment, Amanda, here to do an ancestry tree. So we started that way, and I unfortunately I'm busy life, but she's continued it, and so I'm really proud of her for doing that, because she really helped all of us here today, and I've learned so much from these gentlemen that I'm really proud to be here with them today as well. Just disclaimer, I am not a historian at all. I love history. I wish I had more time for it. Hopefully when I retire, if I ever retire, I would like to continue. But as you've heard today, the theme, I think, for the most part, aside from family, has been education. And so that is what I'm going to talk about today, education and the school systems that our small part of the world has seen, that's known as San Isidro. I think it was said earlier, and I've always believed in it, and I tell people when I talk to them, our school is a heart of the community. It's the strength of our community, and a lot of great things have happened. A lot of great people have come out that have contributed not only to our part of the world, but to the larger part of the world. So again, education and family, very important and very big in our area. So prior to the establishment of San Isidro in 1877, we think, right? Several families, as you heard earlier, had settled there in the 1800s. Many of them were ranchers, as we've seen today and heard the stories. They utilized their own properties to create schools. They used their own homes in some cases. They even hired their own teachers. Most ranchers of the time looked like they were possibly financially capable of doing these things and allowing the other kids to come in from maybe not so influential families. An example of such is the Rancho Alta Colorada, which is located in what those of us who still live or travel through there known as Old San Isidro Road. Okay. And it's, again, Rancho Alta Colorada. That was one of the schools. So that school was established by Don Felipe Olivares, and I have a picture here. Don Felipe Olivares was my great-great-great-grandfather, 3 greats. And so the picture here of him, and then in the back there's one of him and his second family, which is where I come from, with his wife was Marcela Olivares. And so that's why I'm 6th generation, as mentioned, and I'm part of the second family that he had. There's a book called The Tejano Experience, and this book was written by Robert Saldana. He's an optometrist. He's actually part of the first Olivares families. If you ever get a chance to and you want to learn about a little bit more about the Garza Olivares families of South Texas, it's a really great book, and it talks a lot about the history. Interesting fact, as I mentioned, Amanda, my daughter, has always done research on our Olivares. Well, actually, she's trying to do on everybody, even my husband's side of the family, trying to bring in some history. But during her research, she calls me one day and says, "Mom, did you know that Grandpa and Nana are related?" And I'm like, "What?" So apparently, my mom, possibly through the first Olivares side of the first wife, and then my father through the second, right? But I think we figured out it's way down the road, because I think we came out okay. Maybe. But interesting too with that is that I think that's part of our community. You hear how the signs to the Garza and this to that, and we're all related. So in 2007, my husband and I decided to move to San Isidro. And we had 2 kids at the time. I have 3 in total, but I had Amanda and Armando. And one of the things I told them is, I said, "We're all related. You cannot have a girlfriend or a boyfriend here. We're all related. We're all cousins, right?" And so I said, "We're all cousins." Another story, before I got married in 1996, I stopped to see my grandfather on my way to church, fully dressed in the gown and everything and dress. And my grandfather on my mother's side, Asensio Rojas, and he couldn't go to the wedding because he was ill. And I'm hugging him and just wanting a blessing, and because I wished he was there. And he says, "Mija, you're related to the Sanchez." And I'm like, my husband, he's Sanchez. I said, "Grandpa, it's too late. Like I said, you should have told me a long time ago." So I still haven't figured that one out, but we'll research it. But he did tell me that, and I so that's just a little bit about, don't fall in love with anybody in the community. I think we have some pictures too, and we'll share them of the Rancho Alta Colorada school. But in one of the pictures, sorry, I have it here. Here are these 2. one of the pictures here was their house. And so my great grandfather Ramon Olivares is in one of the pictures there. He is grandfather to my father Raúl Villarreal, who talked earlier about the Spanish wells. As a child, I heard so many stories from my grandmother, Guadalupe, who I called Nani. She would tell me about growing up, and why? Because I asked. I was always curious about things like that. So she would tell me stories of growing up and in her community. And so every time we drive to my dad's ranch or whatnot, I remember that, and I see vividly what the stories she would tell me about how she lived and what they did. So it's always really interesting to go back on that. As a child, I'm sorry, the next school I want to recognize real quick too is, and it was mentioned earlier, La Reforma school system, and that was just down the road, right? Gaetano Barrera Sr. and Rafael A. Guerra families started that. And I know that Nadia Guerra is here. Thank you for coming and representing. I'm not sure if there's any other families from the Guerra or Barrera. But a fun fact is that Rafael Guerra later became one of the first board members of the newly created independent school system. And so we'll mention that in just a bit. I think this is a picture of the La Reforma school. Not sure what age. Okay. Okay, so then we moved to 1926, San Isidro. So we had all these little schools in the ranches, right? 1926, San Isidro Common School District was established. And it was first established as a junior high. Students from all ranching communities attended the school district. There was approximately 26 of these common county school districts across our county. That's what someone told me. If I'm wrong on that, please feel free to correct me at some point or let me know. And I think on there, is there the plaque? Yeah. So Leo Olivares, who many of you know, and he's a descendant of Felipe Olivares, he provided a picture of the plaque of that, I guess, the first school, and that's a picture of the school as well that was built. We have a picture of my maternal grandmother, Guadalupe, or Nani as I called her, in a picture as well. And she was 12 years old at the time, we estimate, right, by her birth date as well. So an interesting fact there is that this book, my grandmother checked it out in 1927. And in her own writing, it says that she was in the 6th grade. So she never turned it in. She didn't return it. So I don't know if Leo, he's been there a while. He may have kept records, right, from even that time. But we might owe the school library some money. So yeah, my grandmother, and interesting, it's a history book. So it's just interesting. I don't know why she kept it or what happened, right? Or maybe she just went to school 1 month. I don't know, but but she kept it. So it's my aunt gave it to us recently to have, and as well as my aunt gave us her 1971 high school jacket. That's Rosa Villarreal. Yes. So some interesting facts about the school system. Sam P. Vale and Florence Johnson Scott served as co-superintendents. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the fun fact on Florence J. Scott, because I think it's important. So she was born in Frost, Texas. I have no idea where Frost, Texas is at. She married an Owen Emery Scott of San Antonio. They moved to Mission, then they moved around between Mission and Brownsville, eventually ending up in Rio Grande City in 1919. She established the first library in Rio Grande City, many women's clubs, edited the English version or section of the town's newspaper. In 1926, she was named trustee of the Rio Grande City Common School District number 4, and November of 26, she ran as a write-in candidate for the county office of county superintendent, and she won. She did not have a formal education, but earned her degree later in 1932. She was responsible for the reorganization of all those common schools. She made sure teachers were certified, and she standardized bilingual education. At that period of time, if you look, there was a lot of changes and things going on, the Roaring Twenties, the onset of depression. So it was a tough time for women and change and whatnot, but they had to take on a lot of these other roles too. So I just point out that, she's highly recognized. If you read up on her, I have some literature too, but she's okay. She's just a really interesting person. And I think because of her, a lot of that educational foundation got set up. And I think that's important. And then a lot of us as mothers, I think too, are always that drive and push. So now we fast forward to 1946. That's when San Isidro became an independent school district. There was a controversial school board election. When is it never? Unraveling, bringing much attention to small rural communities, right? Or the community. And why was it controversial? The reason was that initially with the common school, there was 3 board members. Those 3 board members were not afforded the opportunity to sign up as a candidate or something to that effect, right? And so there was just this back and forth, but anyway, it went through July 12th, 1947. Starr County Common School District was incorporated by a vote of 306 to 192. Making San Isidro the second independent school district established outside of the common school system. The first board members included Iquita G. Longoria, Zulema J. Sainz, Librado G. Garza, Blas R. Peña, Rafael A. Guerra, back to La Reforma, Severino S. Sainz, and Vicente Sainz Jr. And most were from La Salle, Colorado, too, as well, to point that out. So as of September 12, 1947, there was 325 students enrolled, and Arnulfo S. Martinez served as the superintendent of Starr County School. Between that time, enrollments, as Amanda mentioned earlier, went up and down. There was a time the oil and gas industry brought a lot of families that were not originally from there, so there was influence of Anglo-Saxon and whatnot. Enrollment numbers in the early 1960s were 559. Through the years, we've continued to try to get our enrollment numbers. A lot of people don't return back to the community. I chose to come back, right? And I thought it was important because of the foundation I felt it built for me in terms of my career. But we do see students coming in from cities like Edinburgh, La Jolla, Mission, San Manuel, Rio Grande City, and we are also, you want to send your child over there, we're enrolling. So we'd love to have them. So present day San Isidro still sits on 35 acres of land, and that includes employee housing. We have some housing available for employees to rent. Our enrollment right now is at about 150. We're working on it. We're working on that. And so we have produced, as they said earlier, I mean, great students that have become successful: doctors, PhDs, lawyers, engineers, successful ranchers, farmers, pharmacists, entrepreneurs, elected officials, educators, etc. I mean, we have it all, right, Dr. Salinas? And local, regional, state competitions. I mean, our kids can go out and do anything. Just, you know, they are top notch and always represent our area very well. Quick fun fact is that in education, we've had 14 superintendents come out of San Isidro School District. There's a picture of 2014 where we had a gathering, and I was fortunate to be there. There they are, except for 2. One, Mr. Ramiro Hinojosa, had passed away, and someone was out of town at the time. He was your uncle, okay. So all of these came together, and it was just a wonderful thing. I was there that day. It was a wonderful experience. So currently, as a school board member, I am really excited about how we continue to move forward with education. It's never a perfect thing, but we are always trying ways to evolve and be more efficient and more innovative. So I do want to recognize really quick our new administrators here today. Our new superintendent, Ms. Elsa Villarreal Morris. She's back there. Thank you for being here. Our principal, Dr. I went blank. I was going to say your dad's name. Dr. Mark Olivares. He's our principal, but his father was Noe Olivares, who is was from the area, went to school in San Isidro. And Miss Veronica Lopez, she's our dean of students as well. She's here. So thank you all for being here. We just want to show you a quick video of San Isidro. And again, we are enrolling. Click it. That's my commercial break. We are enrolling.
Here, every student counts. From our youngest learners in our brand new pre-K-3 program to our college-bound seniors, we provide the tools, support, and opportunities to help every child succeed. We offer a quality education with a private school feel where students benefit from small class sizes, one-on-one technology, hands-on learning, and a culture of excellence that extends beyond the classroom. With championship athletics, leadership-driven clubs, a strong after-school program, and a deep connection to our community and traditions. Ours is more than a school district. It's home. Come grow with us. Discover what it means to be SII Brown.
So, yes, thank you. And just one more thing to share, I got the stop sign already, is come celebrate with us. Hopefully we're going to plan something. So from 1926, which was really technically obviously not the independent, but it still was the school system establishment, to 2026, it's 100 years. So once a tiger, always a tiger. And what I want to share here is my grandmother, again, is in the picture here, and my daughter will be graduating this year, my youngest. So I just thought that was just really neat to see that. Anyway, one last thought is that I would not be here today had my grandmother not survived. She lost her mom and her sisters at a young age. Her father raised her, and her aunts and those around her, the community. But it hit me when we recently did a Tejano series with my Tío Richard Stillman that my daughter made that comment. She said she wouldn't be here if our grandmother hadn't made it, right? So if my father's mother hadn't made it, we wouldn't have been here to continue our legacy. So again, thank you all for being here. I hope if you have questions, I'm not even sure we have time for that, but we're all happy. I'm happy to stay behind as well as I'm sure they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Belinda. And I want to thank all the speakers. We certainly went way over time, okay? But we could go on and on. And right now, it's time for my commercial break. Sandy Pollock. Sandy Pollock is a director with Valley Telephone Cooperative, and I am a director as well. I am very, very fortunate to have the trust of my fellow directors. So I am the president of the board of Valley Telephone Cooperative. And if you're not a member and you live in our footprint, we encourage you to be a member. We do pay out patronage, and within the last 12 months, our cooperative has paid the San Isidro Independent School District, where we have returned for their participation as being our clients, over $1 million. So we also have patronage dividends that we pay to San Perlita Independent School District, La Sara, and Tilden in McMullen County. So our company is very, very supportive of education. So that is my commercial. And at this time, we're going to do a drawing for the San Isidro Monument or statue.
So now the museum commercial. We're gonna do a drawing and then we'll do commercial throughout. But there is a drawing for the statue of San Isidro, right? Mrs. Garza, do you want to come up? I want to hear the story of how you got it. There's got to be a story of how you got it. Okay. I see.
Good afternoon. San Isidro is very special. We participate in the church, and just Google is our good friend. So just looking and trying to find something that would do him justice, not just a plastic statue, but something really pretty. And when you're looking for San Isidro, you want to pick up on the angel and the ox cattle that have to be close to him. The story is that San Isidro was a very humble, hardworking, very faithful person, and he liked to spend a lot of time in the church. So people would complain that the fields were not getting harvested. So the story has it that an angel would be out there in the fields, harvesting, cultivating the fields, so that San Isidro could be in church praying. So it's always very important when there's San Isidro, you see the angel and you see the ox, cattle that were used back then.
Thank you for that. All right, so whoever gets this now, you have the full story of it.
And there's two.
So we're gonna give out two, right? Okay, so the first winner ends with 415. 415. The first winner, 415. We have a winner in the back. All right. Are you Jerry Taylor? Jerry Taylor, you just won a prize. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Oh. Okay. This is gonna be yours, you're saying? I guess it's gonna make.
She gave it to him.
Okay. This is the second one. All right. So the second one is 489. 489. You have one, Sandy? Okay. I say. Okay, and then next we are also giving out a wonderful coffee table book that is the artwork of the very famous Borderlands historian named Borderlands artist named Jose Cisneros. This museum began in 1989, commissioned Jose Cisneros to paint this cover picture. And the museum was so impressed with him that the museum then commissioned him to paint another 60 plus. And so this book is actually a chronicle of all of those paintings with stories connected to them. It's a really, really nice coffee table book if you're interested in South Texas history and engaging people around stories that are beautifully painted. So this book is going to go to number 401. 401. 401. All right, nobody's claiming that, so I'm going to the next number. Number 455. Aquí. All right. Very good. So we want, there's going to be an opportunity for you all to engage the audience here. But we are up on the clock, and we said to people publicly that we would hold you from 10 to 12. And so, as you know, it is 1 o'clock, almost 1 o'clock. But you have you will have the opportunity to talk to the presenters, and so I think that you have a sense for San Isidro y los alrededores. So beautiful storytelling. I want to congratulate Dr. Garza and the audience. This was wonderful storytelling. I want to point out a couple of things here that's very museum-y and very self-serving and very important. So we have here Araceli, for example. So Araceli Perez Davis, who is from the family of Casimiro Perez Alvarez, and so he was referenced, Casimiro who went to school in Saltillo in la Fuente Atenea, the fountain of Ateneo Fuente, the fountain of Athens, right? There was this private school that they sent him to in the 1880s. And then he would create a school for Spanish-speaking children, published a newspaper in the 1890s, and then did everything else that was mentioned by Mr. Garza. So a man of great renown and great accomplishment. I know these stories because Araceli brought the collection of the family to this museum close to 20 years ago. So we know about Casimiro because it's in the museum archives. If you all are holding on to family archives, community archives, like today from Dr. Salinas, I saw stuff here, and I know that Nadia in the back was saying, oh my God, that's a good story. That's a good story. The what? A bad map, but a beautiful story about the map. There was so much that was shared here today that actually the museum doesn't even know about. So a good, honest plea to you, if you're holding on to family papers, it can really help people 50 years from now, or people now, know about the history of this region. This is an open invitation to say our archives are open. If you have photographs, for example, family letters, like Casimiro wrote poems to his prometida. And we have those poems in the archives. So please, if you have that and you've been thinking about it, and if you don't want to turn over, say, photographs that are very, very prized by the family, don't turn them over, but bring them over so you can scan them. Now, if you want to turn them over, we can preserve them forever. Y so les podemos hacer favor a todos, a la familia y a la gente de la comunidad. So that's we're a museum. This is what we do. And so Dr. Gasa, I think, exhibited some of that today as he opened and as he, commented on certain things that are very, very important for preservation and for, as you saw here today, for presentation. All right. So it is 1 o'clock and we got to close here. But thank you very much for coming. It's so much more to say, but you all can say it in much more intimate ways, by engaging people here. Dr. Garza, anything else you want to say? This is going to be a 10-minute closing.
Yeah, so about San Isidro, in 2011 we had a horrible drought, extended for a long time, and so I came up with this idea, so my wife could let me go to Spain, right? So we have very good friends in Spain, but my son was in pharmacy school and he had a little break. So I told him, hey, let's go to Spain. And what we're going to do is we're going to go find some San Isidros, real San Isidros in Spain, and bring the San Isidro over here so we can, make it rain. You gotta have the faith, right? So we ended up with my friend in Segovia, which is kind of like our family home base. And we went out with the horses. So we were messing with the horses. We were there like 10 days, my son and I. And we were at the ranch with the horses and our friend. And one day passes, another day passes, and we go visit another friend who is a bullfighter and so forth. And we're getting towards the end, and I tell my friend, hey, if we don't go home with some San Isidros, my wife's never going to let me come back again, So he says, well, I know where we can find them. Yeah, I know where we can find them too. I've been there. So very last day, we went downtown Madrid, and we went shopping for some San Isidros. And I bought one for our family, a little statue to San Isidro. Bought one from my brother Gilberto, who's kind of my brother, like Raul is my brother. We're cousins, but we're actually all brothers. And I bought one for the parish priest. So it's already late in the evening. We get on the road from Madrid to Segovia. Normally it takes 40 minutes. And his wife is waiting for us. She has a big supper because we're leaving the next day. As soon as we got in the car with the three San Isidros, it started thundering. And then it started raining and it started pouring. And we're driving through the mountains from Madrid to Segovia. And what normally would take 40 minutes to to get to Segovia, it took us 3 hours. Of course, by that time, we just went to where we were staying. There were currents everywhere. Then we came back with our San Isidros, and things did get better for us, right? Then about 2 years later, my friend is telling me, hey, come back and bring those San Isidros. We're suffering a terrible drought over here. So that's my story. Thank you all for coming. It's been wonderful.
Want to take a picture?
This is a gift from us to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.